Let's What's going on there, guys? Welcome back to another video. I know it has been a hot minute since I have last done anything with COD esports or just esports in general. So this is going to be a bit of a longer video, just kind of as we wrap up the CDL season and not really focus too much on the drama. I feel like there's enough videos talking about like the drama with the whole Rencor and Celium beef and all of that kind of stuff, but we're not going to go into that. Basically, though, just to kind of summarize where I've been, I had my son was born in September, and then I went back to work right about the end of the holiday break for CDL. So after all of that, trying to go back to work, be a dad, and take care of another channel that I also have that is focused around Lord of the Rings, MMORPGs, that kind of stuff. Just a lot of life was happening, but we're back. We're going to try and get some more content out there, especially as we go into the off season, because there's a lot of things that I genuinely want to talk about within the scope of COD esports, and I genuinely want to just really get back into it and just kind of talk about COD because I do genuinely love COD, and I think that this is just a great outlet to do so. So as we kind of get talking about things right off the bat, my screen is going to look absolutely messed up, but here we are. So EWC has been wrapping up both on the Warzone and the Black Ops 7 front. G2 Esports came out swinging, and they managed to take the dub. It looks like they walked away. Again, you're not really going to see it. Let me just pull this up here so you can see this. So you can see here they walked away with 210 kill points, with a total of 210 points. All based around placements and things like that. And you can see between the 16 teams that made it into finals, G2 Esports managed to walk away at the top. Team Falcons, who were the favorite to win, walked away with absolutely dead last. So not really something anybody was expecting, I think, looking at this tournament and seeing kind of what these teams were going to be pulling out, but here we are. And so our top three teams were G2 Esports, T1, and JD Gaming, with some of the favorites falling farther down the list. But G2 Esports, they're walking away with a nice $250,000 for their Warzone team. I don't think they had any real stakes in the club championship, but we'll kind of talk about the club championship as we get deeper into it. So either way, Roster Mania kicks off quite a bit with Warzone. It's kind of all over the place. I think just kind of once there's any sort of major Warzone event, right afterwards, there's a ton of Roster Mania, and so I'm not really kept up on a lot of those. But either way, huge to see G2 Esports coming out and getting the dub there with $250,000. Nice to see that. I've been going back and watching the VODs today, and I am excited to kind of see like how that rolls out. And then we get into Black Ops 7. Optic Gaming come out and they beat Team Heretics in the grand finals with a 5-2. They win it in map 8. Overall, honestly, kind of, or no, 5-3. Sorry, they win it in map 9. Overall, I was impressed to see Heretics make it this far. They came off of a grueler of a series going up against G2, winning 4-3. G2, who honestly played better than I expected. They swept their way through the group stages, and then immediately right away in the quarterfinals got beat by Heretics, who then made their way to grand finals. So that was kind of an unfortunate situation for them, for G2, I mean, but they did make the move to get Beans over Skies, and that was a slight improvement. I don't know if that necessarily turned the needle enough, but at the same time, unless they were to make something crazy happen, I didn't see any world where G2 was going to be able to make that big of a change to be able to go from what they had with their previous dynamic up into this new one. So one of the things that I would like to see from G2 going forward, though, is being able to spend a little bit of money. Maybe I don't know if they're necessarily going to blow it up, but looking at what possibly could happen with the G2 roster, it could look like a lot of their key players, like Kremp or Nasty, might end up going somewhere else. Which would be really unfortunate for G2 because I think that Kremp was one of their best players. I mean, he stayed around the whole season, did a lot of great work, and so it would be really unfortunate for G2 to see him go somewhere else. But with the season that he had, a lot of teams are going to be looking at him. Heretics, they made their way all the way to the finals. It kind of was a funny situation. I always just kind of laugh because of all the drama that happened with Real moving to Toronto Koi. And then when he moved to Koi and the situation went terribly, and then he came all the way back to Heretics, and then honestly gave them their best event. They played all the way up to grand finals. Surprised me, honestly. I wasn't even sure if they were going to make it out of groups, but they played well despite Heretics breaking some GAs in their match against G2. But then they swept Team Falcons on Sunday to bring themselves into the grand finals. Falcons, I mean, they continued to just do a lot they continue to build off of their success in champs. They came out of champs with a top 3 finish, and they just played extraordinarily well in group stages, beating Gentlemates in game 7 with a grueler of a series. Unfortunately, they did get swept by the Heretics, which is a really unfortunate situation. I do really think that Falcons were better than the Heretics throughout the course of the whole season. And so for them to get swept like this was really weird. But in that regard, Aluka, I mean, I want to give huge props to Falcons for making a move on Aluka. I also kind of want to give some shame to the other teams for not making a move on Aluka sooner. And then also mad props to FaZe for having Aluka on the bench because it did multiple different things. It incentivized their players that were struggling to do better, as well as it gave them more money in their pockets that they can use when inevitably Falcons had to buy him out had to pay money for the loan. And if a team does look to make a move towards Aluka, which I think any team should, they might have to pay some substantial money to get Falcons. To get Aluka off of FaZe if that's a route any team is going to go. Or FaZe could just say, no, we're going to keep Aluka. He plays really great on the flex. He can run an AR. He can run an SMG. He was able to do a lot of just the right decisions. And I think that is huge for him. Where exactly this team is going to go, I don't know. I don't foresee Pred rejoining the roster at all because when they made the move to get bench Pred and then bring Aluka in, it was very clear that that was the move that Falcons needed. And if they would have had Aluka earlier in the season, we might have seen them in grand finals over another team. Gentlemates, they honestly, they're pretty tragic. They came off of their major 1 win and then everything just kind of fell apart for them. And as much as they made moves to try and improve, which I like that they did, with the dropping of Envoy and Neptune, I don't know if I necessarily agree with dropping Envoy. Neptune, there's a lot of internal struggles. I do think Neptune is a very good player, and so for him to not be at champs was wild to me. Or EWC, but we'll see kind of where Neptune is going to end up landing going into next season. I would be shocked to not see him on a team. If he isn't on a team, then there's nobody that wants a team with him because he's absolutely insane. But Gentlemates, they couldn't quite find the success that they wanted to replicate from their Major 1 victory, so they grabbed Estriel, as well as they managed to get Joe Deceives from Toronto Koi, and they fall flat in the quarterfinals, losing in Game 7 to Falcons. Now, this team going forward, they're going to probably look very different. There's rumors that Gentlemates are going to be looking to make a move for Hydra and possibly Scrap. They might be in a bid war with LA Thieves, but Nadeshot did say that he wants to keep Scrap and Hydra if absolutely possible. So we'll see how that plays out. But either way, I expect Gentlemates to be a pretty strong team going into next year. 100 Thieves, they arguably had one of the most tragic seasons. I think they had a lot of potential to do better than what they did. Yes, they were the Major 3 champions, but I do think that 100 Thieves just overall, they fell short in the areas where they really wanted to, which was champs and EWC. I'm glad that they were also able to see a second grand finals appearance in Major 4, which Optic was able to take that one. And overall, if 100 Thieves are able to get Scrap and Hydra back, I don't foresee them making any other changes. Nadeshot did confirm that aBeZy is still on contract, so we at least still have aBeZy going into next year, which is huge. When aBeZy popped off during that NPC meta, he genuinely became one of the best players. He struggled during the Drawback meta, which once the NPC came into play, it definitely made sense that aBeZy would step up and be a lot stronger because that just gave him a lot of opportunities to be a playmaker. Neum, obviously, if LA Thieves get rid of Neum, that would be one of the wildest things ever. I think Neum came up and did what Mercules would have done if Optic would have pulled the trigger sooner. He took LA Thieves that was struggling with Kenny in their roster and turn them around to be a incredible team, having the longest win streak in CDL history. So for them to come away and take top 8 at champs was very unexpected. Again, there's a lot of drama with that I'm not going to get into. I think enough content creators have made videos on that. Movie star Koi, they honestly, I don't know what else to say about them. Their season went about as expected. Kleenex and Insight just were not able to perform the way that they needed to. I think it's time for the two of them to split. I mean, things might be different going into Modern Warfare 4, but either way, Kleenex and Insight just were not doing what needed to be done for Koi to be as good of a team as they should be. And then Toronto Koi selling Joe to Seeds was a wild decision. And then going to Abe or Kips, I think is who it was. I'm trying to remember who their team was. Oh, they had Real. Kips replaced Real, and then Abe came in and replaced Joe Deceives. Abe was a clear downgrade. I think Abe is a good player. I think he has a lot of potential, but it was not a great start for him. I hope he lands on a CDL team next year. I don't see him landing anywhere strong if it's not just back on Koi. But this is a team that really does need to make some changes. I think Kleenex and Insight need to split, try something else, see what's going to work for them. But they are just not the move. Staying together, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they can prove me wrong on Modern Warfare 4. I don't know. I'm always open to that. FaZe came off of a champs win and got absolutely destroyed by Optic. That was one of the most wild series to watch. FaZe did not look like the same FaZe that we had at champs. So that was not what I was expecting at all, and it was kind of sad to see the way that FaZe went out. I think they're a better team than what they showed at EWC. I don't expect them to make a change. I think Abuza, Simp, Jaza, and O4 were all playing really, really well up until that EWC. If they do make a change, I would guess it would be for Draza because he still continues to show not the same levels of inconsistency. I think this year was one of his better years in terms of the inconsistencies, especially on LAN. But I think he would be the only area where they could potentially find an upgrade. But when it comes to upgrading Draza, I don't know who you could get, honestly. I think Aluka would be an upgrade for Draza, but I don't see them pulling that trigger there. So then going into our final team of the tournament, we have Optic Gaming. Optic, they had the most wild season ever. Silver Surfers all the way up until Major 4. And then they finally get their first tournament win, and then they lose in finals at champs, and then they turn around and win EWC. I'm glad they were able to win on a high note. I think that this is a team that really needed it. Especially because they were coming up so close every single time, but their search and destroys were just not great. Mercules, as good of a player as he is, he did have a inconsistent year, and I think that is what paves the way for a lot of Optic struggles, especially in the S&D. They really needed to step up their S&D game, but Dashi, Shotzi, Hook, they were all kind of doing their thing. When Mercules was doing well, he was the best player on the team. When he wasn't doing well, he was struggling, and that was really hard to see. Um, so looking over then for we kind of talked about the whole season, so I guess I don't really need to go into that. The challengers side, however, was a very interesting staging. So looking at back at the group stage, we never actually saw any of the challengers teams make it out of groups. However, we did see some pretty interesting upsets. So the Pit, which were a EU team, they beat Carolina Royal Ravens. They took a map off of Gentlemates before getting eliminated, and then they played against FaZe. Again, not really anything to write home about when you play against FaZe. But then looking at Cloud9, they were eliminated by Omit, they eliminated Omit, which that was a huge surprise. I think people expected Omit to be able to walk away beating Cloud9, but that didn't happen. And I don't know if they just had a bad event or what was going on there. But then you had Team War. They took a map off of Optic and then were moved in the lower bracket where they swept Boston, which I don't think a lot of people were surprised about. I think Boston is one of those teams that they're with them, especially having rumors of them getting bought out and no longer being in the CDL, which again, that's all rumor. Uh, not surprised to see Team War being able to go up against them. And I think that overall they genuinely, I think Team War played really well, especially Project and as well as Project Notorious. They took a map off of Falcons, which looked good. Then they decided to hand a quick and easy loss to Vancouver Surge, and then get 3-0'd by Optic, which again, not really a situation where you would expect Project Notorious to win. But overall, I do still once again think that this was a really solid showing of Challenger's talent. I think this is something that we genuinely need to see more of in the CDL, because if we want Call of Duty esports to grow, we need to see Challengers players doing well, and we need to put them against pro teams. Otherwise, if we aren't putting them against pro teams until the end of the year, then they're never going to be able to showcase how good the teams actually are. You're never going to be able to see teams like Team War, how they stack up against some of these other CDL teams. Because it's clear there's CDL teams that should not be in the position that they are. If there are challengers teams that are beating them, you really want them to push themselves forward. And the best way to do that, I genuinely think after each major, you have whatever your top challengers teams were in the major and your bottom CDL teams in the majors, they play in a small relegation slash promotion tournament. Or if it's like top four at challengers, top or bottom four in the CDL, they fight for relegations, and then they can move up or change and move down. Now, obviously, that does break how champs works, so it's not a perfect idea. It's just something I'm very much throwing up off the cuff because I genuinely just want to see challengers talent perform even better. So, looking back again at challengers, because we haven't really talked about it too much, we have our standings from challengers finals. This is from challengers champs. We have Omit won in pretty dominant fashion. I think no, that one went all the way to game 7. That was a wild, almost sweep from Project Notorious, but then Omit were able to clutch it up and when it mattered the most. And then you had Team War coming in third, Huntsman at fourth, with Renegade, Brack, Awakening, and Yuli with Major Maniac as their coach. Solid team of ex-pros here for Huntsman, which I know caused a lot of drama because Huntsmen were trying to do as much as they could to make a team that wasn't going to be mostly ex-pros. I mean, they brought in Kips, they had Neum, they had a really solid team. They had Legend when he left Vancouver Surge. And overall, I think it worked better when they were like the brand worked better, but then going into champs, they made a ton of changes and basically had an all pro team besides Renegade, who is a former Halo pro. Um, but this was a wild situation because unfortunately Huntsman didn't perform well. And even though they wanted to have the better seed because they wanted to have the better seed going into champs, so they amassed as many pro points as possible to get that better seed going into champs, which a lot of people were not happy with, myself included. I want to see non-ex pros get better chances, and for Huntsman to do that was not great. And then your final top 8 were Bush, Omit Brooklyn, Project 7, and Mind Freak. Unfortunately, we didn't see a lot from these other teams. Like you have Omit Brooklyn, Two Real, Paul X, Gwen, and Diamond Con, all 4 players that have been in the league multiple. Well, I don't know if Two Real I think has been in the league, but it's been a while. Um, but Two Real performed really well in challenges last year, and so to see him not be able to perform the greatest at challenges champs was unfortunate. And then Paul X, who was in the league last year, Gwyn, he got picked up by Cloud9, but that didn't last. I doubt that's gonna last. But again, Gwyn, I think him being on a 5-6 team, like not getting top 6 at challenges champs, shows where he is as a player. I don't think he's quite ready for like any long-term stint in the league at this point. I think he got really far into his own head when he got Rookie of the Year in the MW3 season. But Project 7 and Mind Freak, they fought, they lost, and they moved on. And that was kind of where that went with challengers. So, one of the things that's really interesting when I look now going into the future of Call of Duty esports and just esports in general, because this is something I've always thought about within recent years, where do we go in a way that is going to improve? What is the next step? And genuinely, I think as we look at the future of COD esports, I really want to see teams pushing forward in areas that are not just um what's the word? I don't want them to just push forward in ways that are going to not bring better talent. I think we've gotten into a bit of a, especially in the bottom parts of the league, we've gotten into just this gross situation where just these top teams and or these bottom teams are not doing the things that they need to do to succeed. I mean, you even look at EWC, you have Cloud9 is the only CDL team that got top uh wow, brain not working. They got top 10. They got 10th and or tied for ninth, whatever that looks like. You know, they didn't even get a top 6 finish. And there were 3 challengers teams that got that finish, and then you have the bottom 4 teams are all CDL teams like Boston and, or not except for Omit, but you have Boston, Vancouver and Carolina who are CDL teams, and they're not even beating out some of these challengers teams. At that point, just be a challengers team. Like you're kind of wasting your place in the league, which is unfortunate to see. And I want to see how COD can push forward from that on the multiplayer side. Now, an interesting thing that's also been brought up on Twitter recently is the comparison of watch numbers. Blazed brought this up. This was during the EWC tournament where Warzone had an average viewership of 99,000. They had peak viewers at 270K, and the average and their hours watched was 2.9 million. Airtime was 29 hours, and then the average viewers of Black Ops 7 at the time of this tweet was 107,000, peak viewers 165,000, hours watched at 1.9 million, and the airtime was 18 hours. So it's an interesting comparison. I think this is something where I would love to see Warzone and Black Ops 7 or just multiplayer, I guess, having more cohesion in terms of their events. What I mean by that is we still have like Warzone and multiplayer as their own like leagues, but then maybe when you get to like champs, you can do multiplayer champs, World Series of Warzone, Resurgence Series, all that maybe together all at the same time. I don't know exactly what the exact thing is, but I do want to see COD. I want to see COD pull them together and work in tandem to create just this really, really cool set of events. Because I do genuinely think there are a lot of players who are interested in these kinds of things and want to see COD push forward in a much better way. But either way, that's just, a spitball brain theory that I have. But wonderful job from both sides on the Warzone and the multiplayer side to see kind of which teams came out on top and which teams not. That's going to be it for this video, guys. I'm glad to be back making some more esports content. It's been a hot minute, but watching the end of the CDL season and getting into EWC really just reignited my passion, and so I'm excited to be back and make more content. If you don't know who I am, I'm Alex or Zojalix. I am a caster, content creator, and I am just overall a major esports enthusiast. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you right back here in the next one. Make sure you guys do like and subscribe, and we'll see you later. Have a wonderful day. Oh, that was the wrong button. Have a wonderful day, everybody.